What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be reviewing the Upmann Magnum 50. As you can see here, little 10 count box. And this cigar really holds a place in my heart because my first time smoking it, it was summer of 2023. I was on vacation in Hong Kong, and I remember the cigar lounge I was at, really beautiful, really unique. They had traditional Chinese decor inside and traditional Chinese music playing in the background. And I just remember it was a whole experience, and I had an old fashioned with it. And I very clearly remember that particular Upmann Magnum 50, the very first one that I'd smoked, it must have had some really good age on it, or maybe it was particularly good condition. It was just out of this world good. Now, I kind of take that with a grain of salt because back then I had just gotten into cigars, I think with a little under a year experience or something like that. Actually, yeah, now that I think about it, that was definitely under a year. But at least back then, to me, that was the best that a cigar could get, essentially. And I remember the interesting part about that cigar was because I had it with an old fashioned right next to it, it had like a very strong, almost orange creamsicle note. Like I could definitely tell it was like orange. It wasn't orange peel as far as the bitterness went. It was just sweet orange, and maybe a little bit of that, like maybe a tiny bit of citrus zest, but not too much. It was just a sweet orange note, and that forever stuck out to me. So today I finally have the opportunity to revisit this amazing cigar, and let's see how it goes. So inside the box, as I said, this is a 10 count box, and you have the usual Habanos certificate of authenticity here. And I also slipped in a 65% Boveda pack just to keep things nice and perfectly humidified. And so grabbing the first cigar out of the box, actually, before I do that, let me just pull this out for you guys so you can see what a beautiful bundle that is. And so we're gonna grab one just straight off the top. Just right off of the wrapper and the foot of the cigar, there's a really interesting, typical Cuban barnyard grassy type note, but there's also a very distinct sweet note coming off of it, which is not something that I would normally pick up from a lot of other Cubans. So this seems already like a pretty interesting experience. So let me just seal this back up and we'll cut and light. So we're just gonna set this to the side here. Just for display purposes, let me slide that back. There we go. All right, so I did think about, I'd gotten this rum recently. I think it's called the Methuselah. And this had actually dethroned the Diplomatico as my favorite rum. But tonight we're actually gonna go for the Glen Farkless. It's a Highland single malt Scotch. And this is actually something that my uncle had recommended to me as something that isn't too out of most people's budgets, but just a really good buy anytime you walk into a liquor store. So I'm taking his recommendation, and we're gonna have some of this along with the Magnum 50. This is very exciting for me, as I said. So let's go for it. And so cutting a cigar, particularly a pretty nice Cuban cigar, best rule of thumb is always, it's better to cut too little than too much. Because if you cut too little, you can always cut more. If you cut too much, the wrapper might start unraveling. You might need something like a cigar glue or something like that. And if you don't patch it up, you'll kind of feel that like annoying stream of air that just kind of leaks out of the cigar, and it doesn't make for a good experience. So that's always recommended. Let's do a quick draw test. oh, right off the bat, even pre-light, I'm getting some really nice, interesting notes of like some type of herbal tea, as well as like a honey sweetness in the background. And like I said, that sweetness isn't something that I always pick up off of Cubans pre-light. So let's check out what the aroma is like on the light. And I'm using a soft flame right now. So because we're outdoors, it might take a little bit longer to light because I want to be especially careful, right? Like the flame, even though I prefer a soft flame, usually soft flames outdoors, especially with a little bit of a breeze, can be a little bit trickier to handle. So if you don't want to go through that fuss and you just want to light your cigar on the relatively faster side, you can always opt for a torch lighter. But today we're going to stick to a soft flame because I'm sort of a snob that way, but we'll take our time here and savor this amazing cigar. And usually when I'm lighting like this, especially outdoors, the process takes quite a while. Just off of the aroma here, as I said, a really nice honey sweetness coming off of just the smoke. And so with the aroma coming off the cigar as I'm lighting it, just wonderful aroma. I mean, I'm getting a little bit of that honey sweetness that I had mentioned, a little of that tea note. And with a lot of these tasting notes, I don't try to get too specific with them. I just try to pick it out as much as possible and place it in a general category of food or beverage sometimes. I don't like to get too technical with it because I think that even though I'm a cigar nerd at this point, I think that getting a little too technical usually takes away from just the enjoyment of the cigar, because at the end of the day, cigars are meant to be enjoyed. So we're almost there now. It looks like we're good to go. My goodness, that is an incredible cigar. Let me give you guys a closer look at this real quick. I don't know if maybe blocking out the background helps a little bit, but just delightful. I'm gonna give it a few more puffs before I try to start to pick out notes from this. That's incredible. So right off the bat, I'm getting the typical Cuban twang, that salty Cuban twang that I get from a lot of other Cubans, but it's that but dialed up a couple notches. So that saltiness is really just sticking out towards the front of my palate. I think it's really good. I actually am very partial to that flavor. I know some people might not be, but I mean, I think it kind of relates to the food that I like as well. I'm much more of a savory person over sweet. And so getting a lot of that right off the bat is just something I'm really happy about. Now, I am also getting some other stuff in the background. A little bit of that honey sweetness, as I mentioned earlier, although I think as the cigar smokes on, that sweetness will start to settle into itself and I'll be able to pick out what kind of sweetness. I did get, as I said, a honey sweetness pre-light, but for now I think it's just kind of a more generic, like sugary aspect. Off the aroma though, just very good. Like, I think a lot of people describe the Cuban twang as also containing like a sourdough note, and that is actually, I actually like the sourdough note probably even more than the salty note, salty barnyard note. That sourdough note just really does it for me, and I think I find it a lot in cigars like the Partagas Series D #4. I find it on the non-Cuban side in the Davidoff Signature, and so I actively hunt that note. And just like with the salty barnyard Cuban twang note, it's really good to get that just off of the first few puffs. And so we're gonna set this cigar down for a moment, and we're gonna pour a little bit of the scotch. So as I said, recommended to me by my uncle, who lives in Hong Kong actually. And so what I like to do to open up any type of whiskey, really, doesn't matter whether it's bourbon or scotch, a lot of the time I don't actually like mixing it in ice. Like I don't like really having it on the rocks, because I feel that dilutes the drink too quickly, and it leads to kind of like an inconsistent experience throughout the night. So what I like to do instead is just to mix in just a few drops of water. And so that actually helps open up the whiskey a little bit more. And I find that I get a lot more in the way of tasting notes. Just a wonderful cigar, just really good. I think that as we progress though, it has potential to get even better. And I think also, even though cutting off more of the cap did help a little bit with airflow, I do want to see how the perfect draw impacts the draw. And then over the ashtray, just very gently work that tool out. It looks funny, I know, but it's definitely saved my life a few times. Yeah, see, that's much better. I don't know how well you guys can see on camera, but that was definitely a lot more smoke production, and I wasn't having to just draw really hard on the cigar. So as I get more smoke production here, and as the cigar continues to burn, I'm gonna check back in with you guys after the first third, heading into the second third, and we'll see what else I pick up from this. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back in the second third now, and this cigar is just smoking like a dream. I can't even begin to describe what I'm getting off of this. I mean, that honey sweetness, honey or caramel sweetness that I was talking about, definitely came up right around the 20-25 minute mark into this thing. And it's working really beautifully with, as I said, that Cuban twang, that sourdough note, freshly baked sourdough. And then I started to get some cream in the background as well. I'm not really sure where to place it. I don't know whether I should describe it as like sweet cream, but if I take the sweetness out of the equation, it's almost like a buttery, just really, really smooth note that I'm getting. And this cigar kind of blurs the lines between sweet and savory, if I'm gonna be honest. And I mean, it's just good. Like there's no other way that I can describe this to you guys, and this is not even me being like sentimental about the first time I had this, but like as objective as I can be, this cigar, if it keeps this up, it's shaping up to be at least a 95 point cigar, if not even higher. And I had really high expectations for this going into it. So we'll see how this goes. I'll keep you guys posted, and I'll probably come back once we're in that final third. And I just want to finish off with this. This cigar is not strong by any means. So as far as like strength goes, nicotine wise, this is probably like mild to medium. But as far as flavor, it's still mild to medium. I would say maybe a little bit closer to the medium side, but man, are those flavors easy to pick out. Like with some cigars, you kind of just have to not use your imagination, but it leaves a lot up to your brain, right? Like it's like hints of this, hints of that. With this cigar, it's very clear. It's not punchy, right? It's not spicy. It's not really in your face. It still has a lot of finesse and class, but you can very, very clearly tell what this cigar is trying to tell you, what it's trying to put out. And like I said, this cigar is just shaping up to be 95, 96 plus point cigar. So I'll keep you posted. I'll come back in the final third and we'll see how this goes. So good. So good. So we're here finally in the final third, as you can see. And right now it's 10:51. For reference, I started this right around 9:20. So it's been an hour and a half and it's still chugging along, and wow. I'm getting really strong notes of that Cuban barnyard that I was telling you about. Cream and a little bit of citrus as well. But really what stood out to me the most was it almost tastes like, you know those like Whopper chocolate balls, like malted chocolate? That was the most distinct part of this final third. And then a little bit of spice came back in as well. But man, this is definitely my favorite cigar of all time. I mean, I'm saying this now, and you know, I'm sure I'll be kicking myself like a year or two down the line when, you know, maybe I find something that edges this out just a little bit. But I mean, for now, out of all the cigar experiences that I've had, and I've smoked definitely in hundreds at this point, I haven't been able to find anything quite like this. And this, to me, just from my palate, really just works so well. I mean, complex, but as I said, this cigar has very clear transitions. Nothing's ever muddled, but it's not overly punchy or spicy either. And just that malted chocolate note is just, it's in spades, and it's just absolutely amazing. So I will settle on, as I finish this out, I mean, I think at this point it won't really get worse or anything like that. I think I'm comfortable rating this a 97, and I only docked those few points because I don't ever think I'll rate anything 100, so 99 will be the highest on my scale. But I'm just docking those 2 points because of, I wouldn't even say it's like a major draw issue, but just in the beginning I did have to end up using my perfect draw tool on this. But other than that, construction has been pretty good. I touched it up once or twice just to correct like minimal imperfections, and then it ended up like correcting itself pretty well. It's not like a perfect burn, as you can see. There's a little bit of unevenness here in the final third, but I don't really feel the need to dock too many points for that. So it's mainly just draw, and then maybe a little bit points deducted from just minor construction issues. But I think that this would still benefit so much from time down as well. So, I mean, if it's this good now, I can only imagine how I'd rate it with a few more years of age on it. So settling on a 97. I know this is gonna set a very high bar for future videos. This is my first video and I'm already rating it a 97, but I promise you, like, out of the hundreds of cigars I've smoked, this is by far the best one. So I guess nothing much else to say. It's pairing really well with the Scotch, and definitely, guys, go out and try one for yourself. And if you like it, definitely buy a box of these. I mean, I'm not letting go of this box for anyone at this point. This is gonna be for my personal aging and consumption. I'm not letting go of it. This is my precious property. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be back very soon with another one. Take care.